Welcome, welcome to Ask Me Anything with Mark Palmer, CST. Let's go ahead and jump into it. My name is Erika Flora. I'm going to be today's facilitator. A little bit about me, I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Beyond 20. I got exposed to and took a class, a certified Scrum Master class, gosh, probably about 12 years ago now. And as a project manager who learned in the very traditional old way of working, what some of us lovingly call waterfall, it was kind of a revelation to me. And so I'm excited to have Mark talk with everyone today. And yeah, let's jump into it. So for those of you that are new to a Beyond 20 webinar, just a quick thing about us. The name Beyond 20 actually comes from a Gartner research study where they looked at when mission critical systems and organizations fail, what that root cause was. And what was kind of interesting about the study was that when they looked at cause of when mission critical stuff fails, only 20% of the time was it due to failure in things like hardware and software. That actually 80% of the time, when things go wrong, major things go wrong in our organization, they were actually able to trace it back to people and to process. And so that's what we're passionate about fixing. This tells a little bit about the stuff that we do, everything from consulting to coaching to training. And we are very excited to have Mark with us. So without further ado, I'd like to give a quick introduction to Mark. Welcome, Mark. He is our newest senior Scrum instructor. He has been there, done that. I'll let him tell his own story a bit here, but we are so excited to have him today. Yeah, so welcome, Mark.
Thanks for having me, Erika. Looking forward to hanging out with everyone today and taking some questions and talking about all things Agile and Scrum.
Yeah, so I just wanted to kick off today by asking you just to share a little bit about your own journey. You have a really interesting story around how you got exposed to all this stuff, what that journey has kind of looked like. Can you talk to us a bit about that?
Sure, it's been quite a ride. I started in the 90s. I know I don't look a day past 33. So is it the gray in the beard? So no, I started in the 90s as a full stack developer. And so on a Linux box, and where we used to do everything from the back end all the way to the front end. And that was where I was introduced to waterfall, and eventually going through all that frustration, we uncovered rapid application development, which was an early Agile framework, RAD. And that was my first exposure to that in the 90s in the startup world, and then got into the corporate world and advertising and marketing, and eventually made my way into the federal government, where our agency went on their Agile journey. And that's where I was formally exposed to Scrum. And my first Scrum project was in the spring of 2005, and it transformed my life, both personally and professionally. And it really just went from there. That's where I found the calling that I have today, which is working with organizations and teams in the Scrum framework. And it's a passion. I've, as you mentioned, I've been in the trenches. I'm a practitioner. I say this to all of my students, every class. I've been in the trenches. I've seen the good, the bad, the ugly, and I have the scar tissue to prove it. And so I'm not just speaking from slides and reading a bunch of slides and theory, and I'm speaking from experience. And I do a lot of storytelling because I'm passionate about it. I've seen things work amazingly, and I've seen things take a nosedive and go off a cliff. And so very passionate about bringing joy back to the world of work. We spend a lot of time at work, and who wants to be miserable at work? So that's something that I'm very passionate about, and which has led me to what I'm doing today full time. And that's training, teaching, coaching, and helping organizations from Fortune 10 clients all the way to startups and everybody in between, nonprofits. And so it's a calling on my life, and I'll look forward to doing it every day. If I have to pinch myself, I get to get up every day and help teams and organizations. So it's my joy. And so I love the opportunities to teach folks each and every day. and as well as share with the community as a whole, and webinars and things like this too.
That's fantastic. Yeah, one of the things that I thought was really interesting about your background too is that you've done this in the private sector as well as in the public sector.
Yeah.
I know we've got a lot of folks in the DC area. Can you speak to a little bit of your experience in the public sector and what that was like, and how they've embraced agility and Scrum, and or maybe not embraced? Yeah, how that looks.
Well, for me, when it started, it was new. In my agency, I was in the Bureau of Prisons when I first was introduced, or well, when we went on our journey there, and we were working in Waterfall, and so then the decree was, hey, we're going on our journey, and so the world changed, and I had been exposed to it before and was very passionate about it even then, but it was, not saying it's easy now, but it was extremely difficult then because it was so new to most of the folks in my agency. And it was a journey, just like we say today, it is a journey, and you got to start, and it's all about improving and inspecting and adapting. And but it was very difficult because it was a mindset shift, as we say, and change is hard. It's not easy. I show a video in my classes that's all around riding the backwards bicycle, and change is difficult. Here in the amygdala, this is right here, brain here, this is where the fight or flight response lives, and change ignites that fight or flight response. And so that's exactly what I encountered. And when we first transitioned our agency into Agile frameworks, now it's in the FAR, right? I mean, federal acquisition regulation. I mean, you've got Agile in the FAR, you've got the entire federal government that has embraced Agile engineering practices. And so we've come a long way in a very short time, and it's just the beginning. I just see so much opportunity in the public sector, even in the private sector, obviously, to transform the way we work and ultimately deliver value to our constituents, to our customers. And it's just a better way to work. You know, Scrum's not a silver bullet, and I say this in all of my classes, but it does expose all the waste and opportunities around you and makes them visible and transparent so you can fix them. And so that's one of the biggest benefits it brings to any organization. And so I'm just excited at seeing all of this momentum on the federal government, state government, local governments. I'm seeing more RFPs where they're asking for expertise in this area. And so it's good. It's good. I've seen a lot of improvements, whereas 10 years ago that just wasn't the case. It was a battle. Not saying it's easy now, and there isn't a battle even today, but nothing like it used to be, which is encouraging.
That's exciting. Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about your classes now, because we're all virtual. We were talking a little bit before today's session about what that looks like. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my classes, I love to inject a lot of fun and excitement into them. It's, you know, you're in front of your camera and you're sitting at your desk for 8 hours a day, and so the last thing you want to do is be bored with a bunch of slides. So my classes, we use very few slides. It's mostly activities, and we use a platform called Miro, which allows us to collaborate and do things together, even in a distributed way with breakout rooms. And so it's very engaging. I try to tell a few jokes and keep it light and airy and fun. Doesn't always land, but now I try to make every class an experience, not just a bunch of slides, folks falling asleep. And so I want it to be a memorable experience for folks to walk away from that class encouraged, excited, and ready to go forward and transform their teams and their organizations.
And then one last question before we turn it over to the attendees to ask whatever question they would like.
Uh-oh. No,
Get ready,
I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it.
My last question is for those of us, or for those on the call that may not know you very well. Talk to us a little bit about what you're passionate about maybe inside the classroom, but as well as outside of the classroom. Who is Mark Palmer?
So let's go with outside the classroom first. I am a musician and I love music. I'm a performer. I've been playing drums for over 30 years professionally, been in the same band since 1987. I know I just dated myself again, but I love music and I've got a few albums out on Spotify, and so I bring that stagecraft, that performance into my classes just because I love performing. I love creating an experience and weaving in not just my experience from on the work side of things, but even music. I inject music into my class. I inject stagecraft, storytelling, and really to keep it interesting. But that's my passion, and of course, music. But my family, secondly. But just each and every day working with practitioners from all over the world. I'll tell you, that's the silver lining, Erika, really with the pandemic, is I've been able to meet and work with students from Saudi Arabia to China and India and every South America, all over the world, and they wouldn't have had that opportunity prior to the pandemic. And so, that's amazing that we've got such a large global community of passionate practitioners, and that we're able to collaborate and work together. And so every class is an opportunity not only for me to teach, hopefully, folks something new, but also to learn something from them. I like to say that, hey, we're on a lifelong journey, we're lifelong learners, and as my favorite drummer and lyricist of all time, Mr. Neil Peart of Rush, said, the point of the journey is not to arrive. And we're all on that journey. And so I make every class and every day as a journey.
That's fantastic. So if we were to go out to Spotify, what is the name of your band?
Mistaken Identity. Mistaken Identity. And there are 2 albums out there, Cliffs of Insanity and Everything in Its Own Time. Those are the 2 albums. So check them out and tell me what you think.
Oh, that sounds like a Princess Bride reference. The Cliffs of Insanity. I love it.
In fact,
Inconceivable.
I think it is. I think it is, actually. I have to ask my lead singer and guitar player, but yes, I believe it is. He's the mastermind behind, he's the lyricist and writes the album art. So, but yeah, check it out and let me know what you think. I'd love to hear some feedback on that.
Oh, that's very cool.
If you're in the Richmond area, come see my band. We do a lot of acoustic local shows as well. So
that's awesome. So what do you play? Talk to me about that.
I am a drummer, percussionist. So we do a lot of acoustic gigs now because there aren't many opportunities to play the big full band electric, and it's very loud. And so we do a pared down acoustic and percussion act now. So I get to play drums in a box. It's called a cajon. And so I'm sitting on a box and just banging out the drums, and it's a lot of fun. I gotta say, I just played my first show with the guys for the first time in over a year with the pandemic, and so it was wonderful. It's like it's finally behind us. It feels like we're coming, onward and upward. And so it was wonderful to be out with everybody and enjoying the weather and together, and finally some semblance of normalcy. It was wonderful.
That's great. So for those of you that are dialed in, if you would go ahead and put your questions into the chat window, and I will ask them of Mark. So any burning question, any challenge that you're facing, any should I be doing this? Should we not be doing this? How do I handle this situation? How should I have handled this situation? Anything like that, we'd love to hear from you. So while we're waiting for people's questions, one of the things that actually came up in our conversation, Mark, prior to starting the webinar, was you had mentioned that sometimes we do some of our best work in trying times like these, and just wanted to see what you've seen, what your perspective has been in the pandemic, in other times of crisis or things like that, that have worked really well or have been surprising.
Yeah, and it is in times of crisis that we really rise above, and it's our finest hour. And I've seen a lot of that, Erica. And as Steve Jobs would say, you want to do the best work of your life? Well, this is an opportunity to show that hey, even with the situation and this last year that we've all been through, we can inspect and adapt and be agile, not only in our professional lives, but even in our personal lives. You want to talk about agility? Let's look at 2020. Many of us had to just completely transform everything, our day-to-day lives. And in the business world, what I'm seeing is just collaboration, distributed work, distributed scrums, teams still succeeding actually, and thriving even in a distributed environment. And platforms like Miro and Mural, think with the tools that we bring to our clients, Erica, right, that really just helps close that distance. Well, we've been able to take that face-to-face in-person experience and yes, carry it into the online space. Is it as fun and enjoyable as being next to somebody? No, but it's gotten us through the worst of times here, and we've actually thrived in it. And so I see teams rising up and still delivering amazing products and transforming the world of work and bringing joy back to the world of work and delivering value to customers and stakeholders, and just life continues. But we're thriving. And so this past year has been opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to do that. And I've seen hundreds of, just with all the students, like thousands of students, the story's the same. Opportunities and onward and upward, and we're finding new ways to innovate in situations like this. And that will continue. That will continue. I'm excited to see what 2021 brings and beyond into 2022.
Fantastic. So I am not able to see the questions in the chat window. So we have a fantastic helper in Chad Grant on our marketing team. Chad, if you could turn on your microphone and ask us or read out some of the questions that you are seeing, that would be so fantastic.
Hello, friends. This is why we have backup, I guess. Here's a question from Tiffany. She asks, do you find that in the new work from home experience that meetings become more laxed or more structured?
I see both, but I actually am a big believer in teams self-managing and obviously with facilitation, we always want to have a facilitator to help guide the meeting, but it should feel organic, and the participants that are in the meeting should really feel relaxed, and it should be an enjoyable experience for them. And so some of the best meetings that I see, especially Zoom fatigue aside, we're all there, Tiffany, with Zoom fatigue, right? But engagement's key when we're doing this distributed. And I like to say just a working agreement with the cameras, for example, having them on is so important, because it's the next best thing to being in person. And I like to use this illustration in my classes. Hey, if you've got your camera off, it's kind of like being in the same room together with a bag over your face. I mean, we just wouldn't do that, right? And so it has an impact on your teammates. And so turn the cameras on so we can see each other, all those nonverbal cues, facial expressions, and it makes a big difference. But it should feel formal and relaxed. Yes, have a loose structure, an agenda. Every meeting should have an agenda and a facilitator, but they can still be organic and dynamic at the same time, and fun.
That's such a great point you bring up. Having cameras on, I think, makes all the difference in the classroom, as well as even in meetings. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right. When your camera isn't on, I take it as you're too distracted to really be present in this meeting. Mm-hmm.
And presence is everything. Being present so your teammates see that you're there and that we're all engaged and we're all focused in, we have a more productive meeting, and it's usually quicker and more efficient. And so, yeah, I love having those team norms and working agreements, and we co-create those as a team. And involve your teammates when you build those working agreements, and it just makes things better, makes it a more enjoyable experience for everyone.
Chad, what
Alright.
else do we have?
We have another question here from Patrick. He asks, how important is an organization's culture to the success of a transformation, and what approaches have you used to start those conversations?
So as we go through with my classes, we go through a few slides on culture and why do Agile frameworks fail. And the top three that show up in version 1 State of Agile survey year after year is organizational culture at odds with Agile values, general organizational resistance to change, and the third one is inadequate management support and sponsorship. And so those are three keys. They're huge, and they have an impact on the organization as a whole in terms of its success on its journey towards business agility. And I like to say it this way, and your Agile journey will be as successful as your leaders who understand and support it. The good news is that they do. And so I show this magazine, and I go through this in my classes as well, but this is a fairly recent copy of the Harvard Business Review. It's the Agile Executive. And so your executives, your leaders know all about business agility, and guess what? They want it. And so you might have some leaders within the organization that are more interested in holding on to power and building fiefdoms, et cetera, but your leaders want it. And so when we're running into those top three issues, I always say, look, find the leaders who understand and support it, and get that air cover. I like to say, build an Agile beachhead, kind of like World War II with Normandy, France, right? We established a beachhead in Normandy, and then we were able to land the troops, and the Allies were able to win the war. Well, transformation can kind of be like that too. Find the executive to give you the air cover to establish an Agile beachhead, a Scrum project stood up and implemented the right way, and then you can't argue success. Because then it becomes, hey, what's going on in Patrick's organization, or what's going on in Lindsay's organization? Or what are those divisions doing? Oh, Agile, Scrum, well, amplify that, turn that up. We need to have more of that. And so a couple of laws in transformation I like to share. Push the boulders downhill first in transformation work before you go pushing the boulders uphill. Build that momentum first. Find that area within the organization that's ready to work this way. And as Michael Spade said so wisely a few years back, and up when actually Patrick, this is my buddy, I know Patrick here, we were up in Boston, but Michael Spade said it this way, coach the demand, not the supply. Go where you're wanted. And so that transformed my life, hearing that years back. And that's exactly my philosophy in transformation work. Build the momentum first, go in the organization where they're ready to work this way, and build that momentum there. Then go back to those areas within the organization that aren't ready. They want to keep working in legacy traditional mindset? Okay, well, we'll come back and check in with you a little bit later. We're going to go over here and work in Erika's teams and organization, and we're going to build that momentum there. And then you can't argue success. Now, ideally, we can learn from those folks out and all those established patterns and research, the Googles, the Apples, the Microsofts, the Valves, the Salesforce, and everybody else that's working in an Agile way. Ideally, we can learn from them in those published patterns, and we can build that momentum internally. Great question, Patrick.
Mark, that got me thinking too. You said that our leaders want to be Agile. What if they don't know what that means, or they think it means something totally different, and there's a bit of a struggle when you try to do things? How can you help leaders understand and help teams?
Yeah, you know, the big thing that I always start off with, Erika, don't even drop the buzzwords, right? I mean, everyone understands business agility, right? And we want, well, what's business agility? Well, things like project visibility, business and IT alignment, ability to change, managing priorities, those kinds of things. I mean, we all want that. So drop the buzzwords, number one, when we're talking with leaders. And because they may not understand what it means, but what they do understand is what are their pain points. Ask them what their pain points are. What is it that's keeping them up at night? Is it know their pain? Is it time to market? Is it development costs? Is it quality, customer satisfaction, productivity, employee satisfaction? Whatever that pain is, understand it. What's the current state? Right? Perhaps we need to have a benchmark or needs analysis. What's the current state? What's the target state? Where do we want to go? Where do we want to be? And actually having these conversations with leaders, focus on these areas first. What's the target state? Create SMART goals, OKRs if that's what you're used to using, objectives and key results, at a minimum SMART goals. Then build a roadmap collaboratively, and then execute. Be transparent, and inspect and adapt. And I love a friend of mine's advice. Bob Galen said this, and I'll just share it here. He said, I'm paraphrasing. He said, in speaking with executives and leaders, and this is true, we're not there to serve you, Mr. and Mrs. Executive. We're not here, it's not about hierarchy and doing what it is that you said. We're here to serve your organization and the teams and the folks doing the work. And here's the deal. Sit down with those leaders, even if it's on a park bench. Okay, have a real conversation. And if you don't feel like you're able to sit down and have a real conversation like this with an executive, then ask yourself, what is it? Is it fear? Is it imposter syndrome, which I've struggled with over my career? Is it I don't feel I'm capable? Whatever it is, get it out of your head because you are. And then sit down and have a real conversation. And they need to understand that, look, this is a systemic organizational change. It's not a tech change. It's not just IT. It's the entire organization. Look those leaders in the eye and you tell them, look, you've got to go first. You've got to model it. You've got to be the change you want to see. And I'll walk alongside you. I'm not going to do it for you. I'm going to walk with you. And we together as a leadership team and us, if we're there helping and guiding, together will help transform the organization, but we got to go first. And we need to go together. And I'll walk this path with you, but it must be your journey. It's the organization's journey. And so just be encouraged. Those conversations have to happen, and we got to start with knowing what their pain is. Hey, why? I always start with why. As Simon Sinek says, go back to the why. Why agility? Why this Scrum thing? What is it? What's the reason? What are we trying to solve for? And then go on from there.
I love it. And lead from the front. And you mentioned some things too. I'm going to make sure that we send out to attendees. Version 1, they do an annual study on the state of Agile that I think is excellent. So we'll send a link to that. You also mentioned OKRs, objectives and key results. Phenomenal way of measuring what matters in an organization. So I'll send some links to folks on that as well. And then Simon Sinek, his TED Talk on the Golden Circle, I think is just phenomenal. If you haven't checked it out, it's worthwhile. Chad, I'm sure we have other questions and I'm just blabbing, so let's keep it.
Sure. Well, Kimberly asks us, what is the difference between Agile and Scrum?
Great question, and one that we see all the time. Agile is the mindset. It's the philosophy. It's the way of being. We should ask ourselves in any situation, how do I be more agile in this situation that I find myself in or that the organization finds itself in? So Agile is the mindset. It's the philosophy. Scrum is the framework, one of many Agile frameworks that help us execute and ultimately achieve agility. So there's the mindset, Agile mindset, and then there's the frameworks or the ways that we execute and achieve agility. And Scrum is it's one of the most popular Agile frameworks out there. Great question.
And George asks, what is the relationship between the Scrum Master and the product owner?
Well, to simply state it, you're a leader who serves. So you're there to serve not only your product owner, but also your developers and the larger organization. So you're there to serve the Scrum team and help the product owner be better as a product manager. So I like to say it this way: product owner's the role, product management's the job. And so as Scrum Masters, we walk alongside our product owners and help them be better product owners, better at product management. We also help the business with empirical product development, understanding Scrum, and we help executives and leaders, the broader organization as well. We also help our developers. So I like to say it this way: as Scrum Masters, we have our eyes on everybody, not just the Scrum team, but the rest of the organization. And if you had a product as a Scrum Master, it would be the Scrum team and helping your Scrum team improve its performance and the larger organization. It's a big job. It's a wonderful job. And it's one that I'm extremely passionate about. I love product owners as well. Been a developer, been a product owner, been a Scrum Master, but Scrum Masters have a really awesome job. And that's not only just helping the Scrum team, but the entire organization. Great question.
Indeed. We have another question here from Patrick. He asks, if an organization is stuck in the mindset that Agile is only for software development, what would you suggest as an approach to kind of break down those walls of thinking?
Yeah, I would absolutely encourage them with the data and research that shows that, Agile is a mindset and it's applicable, and Scrum was invented for complex work, complex projects, complex work. So not just software development. In fact, Scrum outside of IT is one of the fastest growing verticals now. Scrum in marketing and advertising. I've had Scrum teams in communications. I've had Scrum teams in sales. Process engineers, very large bank here in Richmond, Virginia, a credit card company. Maybe some of you know who those folks are. We've had Scrum teams all over that organization. So it's not just IT. When we say business agility, it's the entire organization, from HR to finance to IT and everybody in between. And so that those that think it's just for software development, well, it's an opportunity for us as Scrum Masters and coaches to educate them. And I say this in my classes and reinforce this for my Scrum Masters. Hey, y'all are teachers as well. And so part of our job is to educate not only our teams, but the broader organization, just how this framework works and how it can be applied. I am using Scrum to plan my wedding, y'all. Who do you think my product owner is? Erika, who do you think my product owner is?
The product owner? Oh gosh.
Who do you think is? I'm planning my wedding. Who do you think my product owner is?
That really cares about it? Probably the bride and groom.
My fiance, right? Yeah, she's the product
Yeah.
owner. I'm the Scrum Master. I'm the servant leader, whatever she wants, right? She's amazing too as a product owner, right? It's a North Star for the product, our product backlog. Well, it's the PBIs are the wedding location, the food, the music. Those are our PBIs. Now I'm trying to get her to let me my band play, and she's like, "You're in the wedding." I said, "Well, I can just say my vows and then get on stage and rock it." She's not too keen on that. So we're still having a conversation, but Scrum can be used to deliver any kind of complex work, even a wedding.
I love it. And we'll also include a link to that HBR article that you mentioned. I think that episode, if memory serves, also had a really good one on how to use Agile concepts in human resources and how it's transforming HR departments.
Yeah, and I've worked with a radio station, and they work with Agile, and they run Scrum, and their sprints are daily, and their increment, the solution they're delivering, is the show. So Scrum, that's why I love it. It's a framework. It's a framework. So it's incomplete by design, but it's where you start and then you add things to it. But it can literally be used to deliver any kind of complex work. It was invented for that.
Cool. I have another question here. What does the day-to-day look like for a Scrum Master? There's the daily Scrum, and then what?
Well, that day can change it's dynamic. And so you're facilitating your Scrum events, those daily Scrums. You might be facilitating workshops with customers, users, and stakeholders. Your product owner may need you to help facilitate those conversations. You're removing impediments. You're hunting down those nasty impediments that are slowing your teams down. You're there with your teams in the trenches, helping them with whatever it is that they need. You're a servant leader. You're there to serve. You are coaching. You might have some folks on your teams that need you to coach them through some things. You're helping the team optimize its performance and reach high performance. So you're planning activities and workshops. You're also helping the organization. The organization might need your help in other areas. You might have some struggling Scrum teams. You might be mentoring other Scrum Masters. And I go through the Scrum Master role in my classes, and we talk through some of these accountabilities that the Scrum Master has in service to not only the Scrum team, but the broader organization. It's a full-time job. You don't have time to do 3 other jobs. If you want to do the Scrum Master well and be the best Scrum Master that you can be, you need to be focused and dedicated. There's so much work that needs to be done, not only at the team level, but the organization level. And so you are constantly moving from executives and helping them down to the teams and everywhere in between, each and every day, day in and day out. It's exciting. It's a lot of fun.
So I have a question. Oh, sorry,
please,
Chad.
go ahead.
I have a question. So how do you, as a Scrum Master, have those difficult conversations? So for example, let's say that a manager is trying to direct the work of a team, or constantly changes the direction of a team and blows up a sprint. How do you have those? I think a lot of folks struggle with that.
Yeah, and this is why we have such an important job as Scrum Masters. We need to coach and educate. That's a big part of our job. And so when you have leaders that don't understand how the Scrum framework should be implemented, and hey, the sprint review is officially for you to come in and actually see what the team's working on and give feedback, not throughout the sprint and disrupt the team. There's an event specifically for that purpose. When you've got a manager or a leader trying to disrupt the Scrum team and direct the work, well, we've got to coach and educate stakeholders. Hey, look, you only need to wait till the next sprint and go have a chat with the product owner. And usually that's 2 weeks. The most popular length of the sprint is 2 weeks. It's 1 to 4 weeks. So that Scrum Guide says it's a fixed length event of 1 month or less, usually 1 to 4 weeks. Most popular length is 2 weeks. So you only got to wait at most 2 weeks to get something new into the product backlog and the team working on it. And so it's not that much time. And so educating the organization on how Scrum works is key. And the Scrum Guide says it beautifully. For product owners to succeed, the entire organization must respect their decisions, and those decisions are visible in the content and ordering of the product backlog, and through that inspectable increment, that solution every sprint. And so that's where leaders should be involved in that sprint review, giving feedback on that increment, that working solution, the stuff that the team delivered in the sprint. And so education and coaching is key here, helping your organization understand how the Scrum framework works.
All right, Chad.
All right. And we have another question here. It says, how often should the product backlog be reviewed?
Yes. So just me. See, I try to be funny, and sometimes it fails quite often. So don't quit my day job is what I usually hear. So all the time, it's dynamic. We say that the product backlog is an ordered, dynamic list of all the work known to be needed for the product, the service solution, whatever it is that you're working on. So that product backlog is dynamic. It's fluid. It should be changing based on feedback that you're getting from users, customers, and stakeholders. It could change based on what you're learning in the marketplace. Your product owner, it's a full-time job being a product manager. And so you're out looking at studying analytics and data and industry and what's going on in the industry. And so it's constantly changing. It's dynamic. In fact, if it's not changing, I get concerned. That means we're not inspecting and adapting, we're not learning, we're not getting feedback. What else you got? Rapid fire.
You know, one of the questions that I hear a lot, especially in with our DC classes, we get a lot of project managers coming to Certified Scrum Master courses, and they look and look, and they're like, "Well, where am I fitting into the picture?" So, what are your thoughts on that?
Great question, and I get it a lot. And this is where I want to encourage you. So, Scrum has 3 roles, 3 accountabilities, 3 roles: Scrum Master, Product Owner, Developers. And so I always say to all of my folks, follow your passion. What do you love doing? Do you love working with a customer, the user, the stakeholder, writing user stories, PBIs? Do you owning the budget, the product vision, where we're headed with the product? Be a product owner. Do you love serving the team and the organization, removing impediments, being a protector, facilitator, coach, educator, taking care of the team and helping them improve and fine-tune their performance? Be a Scrum Master. If you enjoy doing the work, rolling up your sleeves and getting in there and working on the solution and delivering the work, be a developer. No matter what your title is in the HR performance management system, whether you're a project manager, a BA, a professional clown, I don't really care what your title is in the system. What are you doing on the Scrum team? There's a place for you on a Scrum team. Follow your passion. No matter what your role is in that performance management system, follow your passion. There's a place for you on the Scrum team in one of those roles, one of those accountabilities.
I think that's great. Another thing that I often see organizations do, you mentioned the 3 roles, the Scrum Master, the Product Owner, the Development Team, all forming our Scrum team. I see where leaders may go, you can do 2 of those 3 roles. Have you seen that? What is your advice in this situation?
Yeah, my advice is don't do it. I say it this way. If you're Scrum Master for 2 teams, you're 50% allocated to each team. And so you're not there 50% of the time. And so while you're with this team over here, there's no one over here with this team. They could be struggling. You could be missing something that you could absolutely help them with. And so when you're split, it's the whole pipe dream of multitasking. Like we can work on 5 things at once and be productive. No, we can't. The science, the data supports it. In fact, the ones that think they can multitask the best are the worst at it. And Fred Brooks wrote the book on this in the 70s, The Mythical Man Month. So if we want to ignore the data, the science, the research, then fine. But my suggestion is that you don't. And it's a full-time job, dedicated Scrum Master. And I like to ask it this way: would you have a waterfall project without a project manager? You wouldn't dream of it, right? That's crazy.
No.
It's the same with the Scrum project. If you have a Scrum team, they need a Scrum Master, and that's a dedicated, focused role. And I don't know that we have the time to go into it, but I've got a little illustration just on facilitation alone, which is one small, tiny part of your job as a Scrum Master. Just being a facilitator. You more than pay your salary to a factor of 10 in the analysis that I've done in some organizations. You can't afford not to have a dedicated Scrum Master. And one of our fellow Scrum trainers in the community, Michael James, says it this way, and I love it. A good Scrum Master scrums 2 teams. A great Scrum Master scrums 1 team.
Fantastic. And on that, let's close. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending. We will send out the recording as well as several links to the topics that Mark has brought up. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoyed my time today. Take care.